Hello, my name is Highlander. Today we're going to be looking at the 3 vs 3 co-op streak achievement for the insane AI opponents, and we're looking to get 15 wins in a row for the highest level achievement there. In particular, I'm doing this for learningsc2.com and my good friend there, Ziggy D. So for this particular achievement, you're going to need 2 friends who are very regular and consistent performers, have steady internet connections and the like. You're also going to need to have a lot of patience, because it can be a very, very, very frustrating achievement to try and get 15 successful wins in a row without error. But look, I'm going to give you the best of the tools you can have available to do that today. So what we're doing is we are taking a probe off the line immediately with the intention of building a pylon right outside the low ground of our opponent's base. You can keep producing probes in the background, but make sure you are going to have that 100 minerals at the other end. So usually it's 1-2 probes at the max. Now once you've gotten there, you've got your pylon up. Next thing is to build a forge. You shouldn't have built any probes since that first couple of 2, but now that you've got that forge down, you can afford to build 1 or 2 probes if you like. The particular thing about building those probes is to use chrono boosts whenever you can, whenever you've got the energy, because you won't be building much that chrono boosts can actually assist. So if you've got 25 energy, you're building 1 probe, just get that probe out a little bit sooner, because you're going to have plenty of energy later on. Now once you've got that pylon down, you've got your forge warping in. One thing you can do, and you see some players do, is build what they call an aggro pylon. We're going to see Dota King do that here. So this aggro pylon draws all of the workers, or almost all of the workers, off the mineral line and force them to attack it. This buys you a bit of extra time, and as long as you cancel that before it's completed, you will end up in a pretty safe position. They even head on to charge anything in the area. Now you've got to be very careful, because it'll even make other people's workers react and charge for buildings that are in the area. So if your friends aren't very good, you might be better off going with a more conservative strategy without the aggro pylon, just so that you won't stir up things for them. Now one other important thing to note is that on our way in, I've checked to see that my opponent's race is Protoss. Dota King here has gone through and he's checked that his opponent is Zerg. And that's very important for your building placement. So that'll come through later. Now I'll just pause this once again to make a very, very important point. After you've got that forge up, you should have money for at least 1 cannon, and you should be pretty close to having enough money for a second cannon. If you don't have that much, you've probably gone a little bit over the top on probes at home. That's okay, it'll pay off later. But generally speaking, we do want to get these 2 cannons, and then our next cannon or pylon on the high ground as soon as we can thereafter. Now, the way the Insane AI works post-patch 1.2 is, if it sees a structure on the high ground, like that aggro pylon we saw before, the workers will come off the line and they will go to attack it. If they see that there is another structure after they've attacked that first one, they'll go attack it. If they see that there's a cannon up, they will ignore that structure once they get in range of that cannon, and they will go for the cannon. If there are 2 cannons up, then they won't engage, they will stay out of the range of those 2 cannons and return to mining. So this is actually quite tricky, because it gives you an opportunity once you get practiced at it. If you get 1 cannon up, then you get a second cannon on the way and close to being completed, and then build something on the high ground, preferably another cannon, then what will happen is the workers will attack that first cannon, or they will head to attack that first cannon. They will see the cannon that's complete, that's in range, and they will make their way around to attack that other cannon, that completed cannon. Now if whilst they're making that journey around, the second cannon completes, the next trigger will come in and the workers will not engage. The Insane AI will not engage 2 or more cannons with workers. So that's a very important little trick, because you can actually effectively lock those workers out of the base as they're unwilling to come within the range of these cannons. So it's a very neat little trick. It's not necessary, but it does help, and it But it is important to note that if there is somebody else doing an aggro pylon in the area, that can upset that AI triggers, and they can get to the point where they think there are too many structures and they begin to ignore them and start mining. So just be mindful, and if you have synergy with your teammates, you'll get through that, and you'll know what to do and what not to do, and who builds aggro pylons and who doesn't. So we'll just resume through here. There's not too much else to do. Essentially, you're just working towards the mineral line. Once you have that mineral line locked down and no probes, no workers are mining from it, you're safe. That opponent is not going to be a threat to you anymore in this game. So it's important then to look to your friends and see who needs the most help. Typically anyone who's against a Zerg opponent is going to be the next one you're going to want to help. And you can see Dota King is seeking to do the same thing here. Whilst he's trying to get these structures up, he is using his probe to spot this mineral line and ensure that no mining goes on, effectively locking that Zerg opponent out of the game. So we've got the two opponents locked down here. Now we can see that our third friend here, Ender, who's normally very good, is having a bit of particular trouble today. Luckily he's been able to keep his probe alive, but he's in a bit of trouble. So the important thing to do in this situation is to note at the time. You can still send a probe over to start getting some pylons up, and you can start cannon rushing over here yourself. But typically what would be the better thing to do is wait until that 5-minute mark if it's close, or if it's after the 5-minute mark, great, and start sending him minerals, because he already has the pylon up. You're not going to have that extra warp in time to worry about, and he can get cracking with that right away. Now the other thing to do if you're having difficulty, if there's a bit of a problem, is to start teching up at home. Typically that's going to involve a big mass void ray rush. The Insane AI, as smart as it might be, does not take into account what your unit mix is. It will build the same unit mix pretty much every time. Which means that if they're Zerg, they're still going to have a whole lot of roaches in there, even though you're going mass void ray. Same goes with Terran, they'll still have a whole heap of marauders in there, even though you're going mass void ray. So a mass air unit that can deal some serious damage is always the best way to go. Now, one final note, there are a couple of maps that are especially difficult. My preference is to stick with playing Terran and to play the odds. You need to get 250 wins for your completionist achievements, so you're going to be going through all of those anyways, and in the time frame of doing 250 wins you're going to get 15 in a row, and you're going to have a period where you're not coming across that one particular dreadful map. But one alternative strategy that some people use is to have two Protoss and a single Terran on your team. The two Protoss do the cannon rushing as effectively as they can. As soon as they lock down their base, they move on to the one that they weren't attacking. Meanwhile, the Terran opponent goes straight for mass reapers and uses the typical mass reaper tactic of not engaging the enemy and mainly focusing on taking out their command center whilst dodging the enemy. That can be a good way to address some of those alternative maps. If there's demand, I'll get a cast up or a VOD up for that to show in particular how that's done. So feel free to leave comments below if you're particularly interested in seeing that. But I do think just going for 3 team members using cannons a great deal of the time is the best way to go. And one final tip before I do go: if it's after the 5-minute mark in the game, you are safe to leave the game. If there's only one human player remaining in the game, the AI will use the same triggers for GGing as it does in a 1 vs 1 custom game against AI. So that can really speed up your play, so you don't have to kill every single structure. The AI will GG when it knows it's doomed. That can definitely save you a lot of time. You just need to make sure that you're organised and you know who is the one that is going to be staying in the game and who are the ones that are leaving, so you don't have a botch up. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do give me feedback. This is my first video, so I'd really appreciate any comments or requests that you guys might have. Otherwise, best of luck.